When Christian Herter was governor of Massachusetts, he was in a re-election cycle and pushing hard for another term. And one day, after a morning and really through lunch into the afternoon of working for votes, he ended up at a church barbecue. So he got in line with his plate, and the lady put a piece of chicken on his plate and then looked to the next person in line. Of course, he hadn't eaten anything all day, and so he said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I have another piece of chicken?" And the woman said, "I'm sorry, it's told only one piece per person." He goes, but I'm starving." She goes, I'm sorry, it's only one per customer." Herter was kind of a modest and unassuming, humble man. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and so he thought he'd try pushing his weight around a little bit this time. And so he said to the woman, do you know who I am? I'm the governor of this state." She said, "Do you know who I am? I'm the lady in charge of the chicken." "Now move along, mister." Authority. I think in our lives, maybe just in our culture, maybe tend not to value authority a whole lot. We like to kind of be our own authority. Maybe the word authority sounds heavy-handed, and maybe we think it's a threat to our individuality, to our independence, our freedom. Maybe we think it will negatively affect our ability to think, to make decisions. But I think when we run up against something where our own devices fail, when we have to try to fix something that we know we can't fix, or whatever, when we have just an important question or issue that we just need an answer or resolution to, maybe when we get sick or something like that, we look to an authority. To an authority that not just has know-how, but one who can actually make a positive difference in our lives. To not just inform, but to transform what it is that we're needing that for. Authority is often it's caught up with its source. It comes from somewhere. Jesus' authority was different. It didn't come from outside of himself like it does for an elected official or the lady in charge of the chicken, but he has it in his own right as God. He doesn't have to appeal to any other source but his own. And we see an example of this when he casts out the evil spirits from the man who has them, and the people recognize this, right? Like, what is this? A new teaching with authority. He casts out, he renounces the evil spirits, and they actually obey him. So we have, in this passage, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, they're in a synagogue, so in the sacred kind of space, having a meeting where they're sharing the Word of God, and it's a Sabbath, so it's the Lord's Day. So in this sacred place, on the Lord's Day, this man with unclean spirits just sort of apparently has free reign of the place. We can't think this is the first time this has ever happened. The people probably don't know, what can we do about this? Or nothing. We're just sort of stuck. Certainly, the demons weren't threatened by any authority of the scribes, who knew a lot of stuff, but really couldn't do anything, to them. And then Jesus comes in and sort of encroaches on his territory, and with the word that comes from the power that he has, just as God, he's able to just cast out those evil spirits. The word of the Lord has an effect. When God speaks, things happen. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Jesus says, "Little girl, I say to you, arise," and she gets up. He says, "The unclean spirits come out," and they come out. Jesus says, "This is my body, this is my blood," and so it is. Jesus' words, through his own power that he has as God, through his own authority to make a difference, when he speaks, has an effect, and it makes a difference. Of course, a need for that is to be open to that and to respond to that. Jesus fulfills We heard the Lord say to Moses in our first reading, "A prophet like you I will bring to the people, and to him you will listen, because he will speak with the actual words of God." The word that will make a difference for his people and bring them life, to bring them salvation. I was thinking those questions that the demons asked Jesus, maybe we're tempted to ask ourselves sometimes, like, what have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? Like, it reminds me of that, what I quoted last week from Pope Benedict XVI, when he said, aren't we all afraid in some way that when we let God in, it's going to take something away from us that makes life great and beautiful and happy? But no, when we invite the Lord in, he takes away nothing but gives us everything that makes life beautiful and good and whole. But we know sometimes we need Jesus to come and bring us freedom from those things that keep us from that. That maybe even here today, like we're here in a sacred place on the Lord's Day, but maybe we're also wrestling with some kind of spirit that we know just isn't good for us, for our own being and for our relationship with God and for our relationship with other people. Maybe we're struggling with just a spirit of excessive pride. Maybe it's we're wrestling with a spirit of anger, or resentment or bitterness. Maybe we're wrestling with a spirit of lust. Maybe we're wrestling with the spirit of despair. Maybe we're wrestling with a spirit of jealousy or greed or envy. All these different spirits the Lord wants to speak a word to. And through his own power as God, is able to bring us a freedom from those things. This Jesus, who is the Word of God made flesh, and then whose flesh and blood come to us to be our nourishment here in the Mass. So as we encounter Christ here in the Mass today, let's ask for that grace to know where he needs to move with power in our lives, and invite him to do so that we can go forth from here with more freedom than when we came in.